COVID broke the banks. You see, what happened is first the earth cooled and then the dinosaurs came, but they got too big and fat, so they all died and they turned into oil. And then the Arabs came and they bought Mercedes-Benzes, and Princess Charles started wearing all of Lady Di's clothes. Couldn't believe it. He took her best summer dress, put it on, and went to town. Oh, wait, that's Jacobs from Airplane, but it's about the same line of argumentation from The Atlantic. After COVID-19 hit the U.S. bank deposits soared. By themselves, the pandemic relief measures, including stimulus payments, expanded unemployment insurance, paycheck protection program funds, put more money in people's hands, even as consumer spending fell. At the same time, businesses cut back sharply on spending and investment. You mean when they were closed? The result was a flood of money into the banking system, and then so on and so forth. You get to being on the wrong side of bond holdings. That's what's happened to the banks. It's COVID. Not anything we did in response to COVID. It just traces right from the dinosaurs to Prince Charles and Princess Di's clothes. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the capitalist pig, Jonathan Hoenig. He is also the author of a new textbook of Americanism, The Politics of Ayn Rand. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. Oh, and by the way, thanks for that capitalist pig T-shirt you sent us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're one of the few, and you and Amy are one of the few brave enough to wear it these days, Dan and Amy. Great to be with you. Capitalism is a bad word, and I'll tell you, capitalism is not what we see in the banking sector. Let's not kid ourselves that this is some type of situation where greedy capitalists have gone awry. As you're alluding to, government has been at the center of this banking crisis, creating the spending, creating the stimulus that created the deposits and the liquidity that now banks and individuals are dealing with in terms of inflation and upside-down investment.
Yeah, but just the whole thing, that the whole story that's being told with respect to everything, it can be commercial real estate, commercial rents, commercial real estate values. It could be children's educational performance. It can be anything under the sun, and the virus did this all to us because, of course, the policy choices that were made by the Fed as well as the federal government and state and local governments too, those were the only choices to be made, and that just needs to be challenged at every turn.
Absolutely, Dan and Amy. Both sides of the aisle agree now. If you ask them that all the spending, all the stimulus during COVID, the paycheck protection program that we know was rife with fraud, the ultra-low interest rates, people accept that was needed to somehow stave off, help us during the pandemic. But, of course, we're paying for it now. And you've got a majority of Americans, Dan and Amy, even those making $100,000 a year, saying that they're literally having trouble making ends meet, addressing the daily needs and their family's daily needs. So, this is not over yet. In fact, I think the banking pandemic, the banking contagion isn't over yet. You're likely to see some more banks, probably as early as this weekend, come under government control.
Wait, what do you mean? Like how many?
Yeah, how expansive do you think it is?
Well, look, there's been estimates done in the last 2 weeks that say you could have as many as 200 banks in much the same situation as a Silvergate and Signature, and that very long-dated assets, and the SVB as well, very long-dated assets and very unsticky deposits. So if there's a bank run, and we've seen that, a lot of banks fail. Even this morning, Dan and Amy, rumors about Deutsche Bank, which is one of the 30 biggest banks in the world, in Europe, under some pressure. So, I'm not a Cassandra, but I think now is an especially good time to make sure you don't have more than $250,000 in any one bank.
Unless you're with one of the big boys that's government-backed by Janet Yellen, or one of the small boys that's also government-backed, maybe, according to Janet Yellen. We don't know.
Yeah, I think that's part of what's so uncertain, and kind of what reminds me very much of 2008. Again, not to be a Cassandra, Dan and Amy, but you remember back then, government stepped in to facilitate a bailout of Bear Stearns and of AIG and of Citigroup, but not of Lehman Brothers.
No Lehman, right.
So even as you're, suggesting that uncertainty about just what if this was any other industry, entertainment, transportation, there wouldn't be the systemic risk. But because government is so involved in the banking system, it's almost really a private-public partnership. Everyone's waiting not to see what happens with the economy, but what happens with Janet Yellen and government in D.C.
So when you talk about the one projection, a couple hundred banks. A couple hundred banks out of more than 4,000 that are FDIC insured. doesn't necessarily rock the system, although if it's a lot of big banks, the Credit Suisses and the Deutsche Bank, then it starts to get a little bit more interesting, along with Silicon Valley. Is your expectation, is it your belief that the main potential contagion is balance sheets that are similar to Silicon Valley with their devalued bond positions, or is it something else?
Well, I wish I could tell, Dan. I mean, we've been in this game for over 20 years, and each time it's a little different. If, in fact, this is that type of a banking crisis. I'll just remind you, back in 2008, people thought it was, in effect, subprime loans. Remember, it was first seen as a subprime problem. Then ultimately, over the course of a very ugly summer of 2008, it metastasized into what we now know as the global financial crisis. So, all we know is that banks are under pressure. Bank of America had a new 52-week low just yesterday. So, again, not a Cassandra. I would never bet against this great country. But, when Janet Yellen and the government tells us that don't worry about the banks, we've got it under control, the market seems more worried than they would have us believe.
And your reaction to the decision by Powell this week to kick rates up a quarter point?
Yeah, well, central planners are always wrong. They can't be right. So, it's just as their ultra low interest rates created the inflation and spurred the spending and the malinvestment. Now, the higher than average interest rates could really crash and slow the economy. So, Dan, it's true that the Federal Reserve, and look, this country thrived without the Federal Reserve created in the early part of the 20th century. So, they create the boom and bust cycles, and it's why so many of the clients I'm talking to at capitalistpig.com simply want out now. They're feeling tormented by the inflationary tumult and the volatility. So there's just a lot of fear, and so much of it's being created not by the economy, but by the government, the inflation, and all the rest.
Where do they want to go? I mean, they want to take their money out they want to lower the risk associated with their money. Are they going to cash? Are they going to gold? Where are they going?
Well, I mean, and again, sounds like it's an infomercial, Dan, but gold is really one of the shining investments right now, no question. Up about $2,000 an ounce yesterday, not too far from its all-time high. That tends to be an indication that momentum is set to continue. I mean, and it's not surprising. I mean, at the time you're seeing major banks, those even with that federal backing and backstop, down 10, 15, 20% in just a year, and worries about a potential weakness in the U.S. dollar. This is a time that gold's really shining. I'll say this. Don't make it an all or none. Where people always go wrong, Dan, is whether it's Netflix or gold or even Beanie Babies, they go hog wild. They put all them on to make it part of a portfolio, not your only part.
Yeah.
But this is certainly a time I think gold's going to shine.
Yeah. The only, the Beanie Babies did well for Ty Warner, but I don't know about anybody else that put all their money in Beanie Babies. Yeah. That's why I got out of alpaca farms. I thought it better to diversify a little bit. Yeah, not put all my money in alpacas.
Condo.
Do you have a perspective on commercial real estate with the change, the ongoing change in the landscape away from brick and mortar, but particularly accelerated through COVID?
Yeah,
and the reaction to COVID.
From week to weaker, unfortunately. We can't look at real estate, Dan and Amy, without ignoring not only interest rates, which is directly hurting the real estate market, but the bank system writ large. I mean, behind so many of these bank holdings are mortgage-backed securities. So we've seen actually a lot of the commercial real estate, even residential as well, weaken as the banking sector has weakened as well. So look, when we're talking about our own homes, maybe a piece of property, it's always location. And of course, real estate isn't something you can trade like a stock, but the signs for real estate, at least as evidenced by publicly traded REITs, is quite weak, Dan and Amy. So this is an area, I think if you're putting money to work, you've got to be very careful. The bottom ain't in yet.
All right. He is the Capitalist Pig, Jonathan Hoenig, founder of the Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund and author of the book, A New Textbook of Americanism, The Politics of Ayn Rand. Capitalist Pig, Jonathan Hoenig, thanks as always.
Best to you both. Be well.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Open for business. Download the Freedom Square app and create your profile for free. News, podcasts, resources, and a pro-American business network all in one place and all at your fingertips. Let's meet one of the pro-American businesses you can connect with inside Freedom Square.
Hi, I'm Lisa Joy, owner of Joyful Drops. I am passionate about educating people on natural solutions. I've been a wellness advocate with doTERRA since 2015, helping others in simple, practical ways to support their health and home. Now more than ever, it's crucial that we start to vote with our dollars. I look forward to connecting with you inside Freedom Square's business network.
Freedom-loving Americans, you have a new home. That home is freedomsquare.com. Download the Freedom Square app and create your profile for free. And register your business right now and start connecting with patriots across America. Join us in the fight for freedom. freedomsquare.com. Freedom lives here.
All right, I'm going to take it in about